Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain podcast. We are here for a really wonderful round two, going deeper / behind the scenes with Nyle Biondi. Welcome back, Nyle.
Thank you, Sean. I'm excited to talk to you again.
Same. I'm glad we're doing this right in quick succession. You know, why not? And for all of you who are listening, we're gonna be talking about going behind the scenes with. Well, okay. Let me start here. Nyle and I did an interview a couple, maybe it was about a month ago now, and then the podcast came out, I think 2 weeks ago now. It's called Talking Queer TMS with Nyle Biondi. If you want to check it out, by all means, please do. It's a great one. And then afterwards, he and I had a really hilarious correspondence exchange about the process of recording and listening to it. And we thought, like, you know, this is an important part of the conversation. Like, let's open this up. Like, let's let people see behind the curtain, so to speak, behind the microphone, and get into our heads about fear, about how it feels to have TMS and live that way. What would you add to that, Nyle?
Yeah, fear cycles. I feel like that's a really hard thing to explain to people in this work, and it's like one of the key parts is helping people identify those fear cycles and helping them learn how to get out of them. But as I was saying to you right before we hopped on, most of the people that I work with, when I bring up fear cycles, or a lot of them, they're like, I'm not afraid of things. I'm fine. That's not a problem for me. And it's just like helping them see it in a different way. So I thought you and I, fellow TMS buddies, could like really sort of spell this out for people, because we go through it a lot. And I think I was one of those, like, I'm not afraid of most things. I'm fine kind of guys before I started this work. And so for me, it's really been a process, and, you know, kind of just slowing down and noticing what's happening in my body and noticing what it's connected to, and just like learning how to recognize those cycles and sort of back out of them, so to speak.
Definitely. I love that. And if anyone has listened to this podcast and has not gathered this, like, if you pull back the curtain, no one is perfect. That definitely includes me. If I have not made that clear from listening to if you haven't gotten that from listening to previous podcasts, let me say it again. And it includes Nyle too, and everyone, and it includes you, like you who are listening. The one thing that I think is really nice. Well, okay, let me say this, and then let's get into the story of what happened and process that. So, first thing I just want to say is that I think it's really nice, because so many of us struggle with perfectionism, and so many of us apply that perfectionism to our healing journey. And it's really nice to know that, like, people who are doing pretty well, like myself and Nyle, in terms of chronic pain, we are not perfect. And we know this stuff, and we get this stuff, and we screw it up, and we still feel afraid, and we still deal with shit. And that's enough, you know, like, that's enough for your pain to ease out of your body. Like, that is enough. And so okay, so I want to say that just to be like, you don't need to be perfect. You know, this is the way out. These are the steps that will lead, you know, mind body treatment is the way out of chronic pain. That is what it is, but you don't have to do it perfectly. So don't freak out about that. But okay, why don't I share my side of the publishing the podcast story, and then we'll turn it over to you, Nyle, and you can talk about yours. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, Nyle and I had the podcast where we recorded the podcast a while ago. Awesome. I thought it was a great conversation. And then it took a few weeks for it to come out, because I just, like, the way of the lineup, you know, some other podcast just came out before that. So I was like, okay, I've got this one stacked for later. And then I decided, I was like, the political situation is so outrageous, and I have to name that on my podcast. Like, I can't have, like, a public platform and, like, just say, act like things aren't so, the current circumstances in our country and around the world are so detrimental to so many people's mental health and so many people's physical health. And I'm like, I gotta name this. So I recorded an intro that I put onto Nyle and I's conversation, just about like, my thoughts and feelings on the current political situation. It wasn't until after I recorded that and put it all together and was like, okay, attach this to the Nyle conversation. Here we go. Put it in the little, podcast. This is the behind the scenes. I'm like uploading it to the podcast like player thing that I have where I organize everything. And I'm like, okay, it'll come out next Sunday. And then it wasn't until after all that was done that I got this like pang of fear. Speaking of fear, that I was like, oh no, what if Nyle thinks that like I am sort of like using our conversation that we had where we didn't really talk that much about political stuff. What if Nyle thinks I'm sort of like appropriating this conversation to use for like just like my own political theorizings and my own thoughts and musings and like I don't know what he agrees with or wouldn't in the shit that I'm saying. Like, is that incredibly presumptuous of me to just like uh, put all these words out there and attach it to this podcast with him that has like a picture of him on the cover? Like, that was kind of messed up. And like the deeper message there, especially if you look at this through a TMS mind body lens, the deeper message there is like, um, kind of like I screwed up, but what's even deeper than that is like the things that I want to say, just like who I am, what I think, what I believe, that that might be wrong. Like I have to question myself, and other people might not like it. Like Nyle might not like it, and sure, I mean, of course, other people won't like it. Like not everybody's going to agree with what I think politically, and that's fine. Like we're all. But that's not the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is like we're here to heal from chronic pain. But your beliefs and your feelings about politics are part of that. Like that's important. So we welcome that in, whatever you're thinking, be it not totally aligned with me or be it kind of aligned with me, whatever, all is welcome here. But the point is that I was freaking out because I was like, I am bad. I have done something bad. And then I thought like maybe I'll take it out. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm leaving it in. I don't fucking care. I'm just gonna do this anyway. Okay, so that happened. The podcast comes out. I thought it was good. I listened to it as I always listen to them when they come out. I was like, I think it's a good one. And a couple days later, maybe you remember, Nyle. It was like it came out. It comes out on a Sunday because it always does. It was like Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. So it was Tuesday of a few weeks ago now. What was that?
Yeah, no, I waited a few days for my own reasons that I'll get into after.
Well,
Yeah.
great. Great. We'll get there. So a couple days later, I open up Instagram, and which Nyle and I follow each other on Instagram, and I have two long, right?
Good friends are like, oh yeah, he does this. Yeah, these voice memos. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right, let me just say it. Yeah.
Right, like this is normal for Nyle. Two long voice memos, and I, of course, because I had this fear, my first reaction was, "Oh shit."
Yeah,
So I'm like, no, literally, I'm like, I'm gonna open this up, and it's gonna be Nyle saying like,
the angry guy.
"What the." Exactly. Like, what the fuck? Like, like I was like, he's gonna be angry, and like, oh god, why? So I took a minute. I saw them and was like, let me get back to this later. But then of course I had the anxiety because I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna say that you can see on Instagram if the messages have been seen. They have been seen. I didn't I didn't actually listen to them. So I'm like, god damn it. All right, I just have to listen to Nyle's anger towards me now. Let me just do this. So it's lunch. I had a break between clients. It's my lunch break. So I just like press play on this, like with bated breath. And literally the whole thing was Nyle being like, that was so awesome. Wow. The first one was like, I didn't even listen to the interview yet because I'm scared to listen to my own interview, but I just listened to the introduction and I really appreciated the introduction. And I loved how you like incorporated like an intersectional lens with politics into your introduction. And thank you for being you and just speaking this way. And I was like, wow, I didn't even consider that
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
might be
Oh,
his reaction.
that, yeah, I feel like, yeah, I relate to that. Like that little, yeah, you didn't even know that that was a possible outcome. That
I
maybe
didn't even think of it.
complimentary of you. Yeah.
Like literally didn't even think of it. And then I mean on some level I certainly did think like he might not be mad. He might not be mad. He might not be mad. But I didn't think like maybe he would think it was a good thing. But anyway, so that was the first message. Then I listened to the second message, which was Nyle saying like, "Okay, I finished it and I have my own process that I'm not feeling great about to
Yeah.
share, which so let me turn it over to you because that was when we decided like, well, let's just like let's just talk about it and let's talk about it publicly. Why not?
Okay.
So over to you, Nyle.
Yeah. So yeah, as I sort of said a minute ago, when I came out, like Sean messaged me and was like, "Okay, it's aired, blah blah blah." And because my original plan was like, "Great, I will send out an email blast. I'll put it on my own social media so people can see it." But immediately I had this sense of like, "Nope, I fucked up, and this is terrible, and I can't share it with anybody now." Um, and so I went into that, and but
Yeah.
because of the work I do, and I guess I just want to say that that wasn't a loud conscious voice. That was just sort of like underlying my avoidance of listening to it. I didn't really know why I was avoiding it. I had a different story. They're like, "Oh, you've been on a few podcasts. You know what you said. You know what you sound like. You don't have to listen to it." But there was also this extra layer of, and you're not going to share it with anybody. So, again, doing the work that I do, I was like, okay, I need to like confront whatever it is I'm afraid of, whatever I'm feeling ashamed of, and like see if this really is as catastrophic as my brain is telling me that it is.
I just have to pause there. The fact that you use the term catastrophic is just so funny. It's like it's so meaningful and funny to me because in my listening to the podcast, I thought it was a really good conversation. So the fact that you interpreted it in some part of your brain as catastrophic is
Cancel.
hilarious to me. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, like I knew it wasn't catastrophic, but like that is
Sure, I know what you mean.
you. They're like, this is huge. You can never come back from this, and it's just like,
It's hilarious to me because I'm like I understand.
yeah.
Like I know the feeling.
Right, and my guess is that anybody listening to us now who heard that episode is like, I'm not sure what he's talking about, that he felt embarrassed about. I don't know, maybe some of them are like, "Yeah, let's wait and see if this guy can fix the shit that he threw out there," you know? So anyway, like, I'll get to it. It was when you asked me, I said we were talking about sort of identifying, like, or defining what we mean when we talk about safety versus danger. And I was just talking about like, we're talking about like you, Sean, sitting in your chair, how it's not dangerous for your back to sit in a chair and, stuff like that, just helping people reframe what we're talking about. And you said, well, but wait, but some people aren't safe. They might be like immigrants facing deportation or trans folks, facing the loss of medical care or, things like that. What about people who really aren't safe? And I think that I touched on that for like a second, and then I like went into like workplace stress, and I was like, that is very different. Like day to day predictable workday stress is very different from I might get deported next week stress. And so I felt embarrassed. I was like, I just jumped over that question. I didn't answer it very well. I sort of shifted into something else. I probably sound like some privileged white dude who doesn't have to worry about these things, which is true. I'm not worried about my own deportation. I'm a little bit worried about future medical care, but that's not a current concern of mine. But I'm not facing day to day, like life and death kinds of stressors right now. And so, yeah, so I just went down that rabbit hole of like, this is terrible and there's no coming back from this. And then I was like, wait a minute, zoom out. Like that's a tool I teach clients a lot, just when to zoom in and when to zoom out. And, for me, it's you zoom out when you're in that, like, everything is terrible. This is a catastrophe kind of place. Like zoom out and go, is this really true? This story that you're telling yourself, is this actually a catastrophe? Is there anything that can be done about this? And that's when I was like, this isn't permanent. I mean, like in some senses, maybe, but like I was like, I could just message Sean and say, hey, I don't like how I did that. Can we do it again? And lo and behold, I did, and Sean said yes, and here we are. Um, so yeah,
That's right.
I wanted to get into, like, to first give a better answer of that question, but then also to help people see these fear cycles that we get into that are sometimes hard.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, hold on. Let me butt in there just to because like let's like say I just want to like let's go to the fear cycle. So that's very important. But let's stick with this for a minute because like like I said, my experience of like doing the podcast was that it was like a great conversation. I'm also thinking, it's
Yeah,
not like immigrants and trans people and whoever don't experience shitty workplace
yeah.
situations. Like that's not true.
Right, it wasn't unhelpful, I think, what I said, but I just felt like I missed it, like, living in this sort of ambiguous threat state is different from, just, like, being in a shitty work environment, like.
Yeah, right. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I totally see what you mean. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's good for us to just like linger on this for a minute because this is something. I mean, what you're saying about you're a privileged person, same in so many ways, and of course, most of us and people listening will probably relate to this. Most of us have identities that are privileged and identities that are not. I mean, there are some people maybe who like truly across the board, like all of their identities are privileged, but most people, like myself, it's where like I am gay. I am also like a white cisgender man who grew up like upper middle class. Like I have a lot of privileged identities and of course then like one identity that is not, but then even within that, when you look at the LGBTQIA plus community, um gay men are thought to be like of the more privileged in that community, and that's true. I mean, that's certainly true. So, identity is mixed and confusing, and I'm just like I have never had a chronic pain client, nor have I really heard stories of people struggling in chronic pain who were like also in like a major crisis. And I don't, I just wonder about that because I'm like, you never hear somebody who's like, the worst part of my deportation proceedings was my back pain or my fibromyalgia. And maybe it is, but I don't honestly, I don't know. But I just want to turn that over to, I think for the chronic pain stories that I'm familiar with and the clients that I have, um, are people who are like post trauma
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
pain remains. But I don't know. I mean, I would want to turn that over to you and just ask like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I mean, I think it's complex, right? Like, it's ideal to work with folks post-trauma, and sometimes we do work with folks in the middle of trauma. I felt this a lot at the beginning of COVID, like, any clients who were doctors and nurses, first responders, like, people having to go in every day and witness people dying or in really difficult states, and meanwhile, trying to do their own healing, it's very difficult, but even that is different from, um a threat to you, and again, these ambiguous threats, these threats where we don't know if anything is going to happen at all, but we do know that really bad things could happen. That is psychologically the most difficult place to be. Even when something bad happens, that's easier for us psychologically because we can process and move on. Whereas when you're in this ambiguous threat state, you're just on this like heightened state of alert all of the time, just am I going to be at risk or not? Do I need to protect myself in certain kinds of ways or not? It's hard to regulate from that state. And as we know, when you're dysregulated, it's really hard to heal from chronic pain. So I guess I would just say, like, and I see this also with young people who are still living at home. And they even will tell me it just feels so hard to do this journaling and to do this work when I still have to see the people who raised me every day, who have like sort of instilled these patterns in me and contributed to some of my trauma. It is a lot harder to heal under those circumstances, but it's not impossible. So I guess what I would offer to somebody in those states is that a lot of it is about attending to the emotions that you're having about those things, and like just trying to be conscious about releasing them throughout the day, or whenever you can. And so it's not about trying to convince yourself that you're out of threat or that you're safe from threat, but it's about just getting clear in your body of like what you can and can't do, and trying to release some of that stress. And so doing that through journaling and through talking and processing to people. But also I think it's just sort of having a barometer for yourself. Like for me, it's like, oh, carrying a lot of tension in my body right now. What do I need to do to release that so that my body can be a little more relaxed? And I can often do that even when I'm worried about something. And so part of it also, I think, is coming back to this thing that I'm worried about, this ambiguous threat, isn't happening to me right here, right now. So in this moment, I can take some deep breaths. I can relax the muscles in my back and my shoulders and my body. And so just having the ability to do that, to recognize the moments that we have in which we can sort of come back to safety, but also just acknowledging the stress that just is there and is going to be there when you're facing uncertainty.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. One thing that this conversation is making me think about also is Dr. Dan Ratner, in teaching about healing from chronic pain, one of his theories that he really puts forward is don't minimize your trauma. And one of the things that I've heard him say, I think he maybe even said, I interviewed him for this podcast. He might have even said this on this podcast, but one thing I've heard him say is like people typically know what trauma they have been through, and it is true that sometimes people don't, like that happens, but typically people do have a sense of what their trauma is, but they're downplaying the impact, and they're downplaying how hard it really felt. They're downplaying how much it really affected them, the gravity of it. I think maybe that's the way he puts it, the gravity of your trauma, which I think is a really important part of doing the emotional work,
Right.
to heal from chronic pain, and like really tuning into your true self and being real with yourself. Like, yeah, I really did go through that. Because when you acknowledge the gravity of your trauma, it's no longer your fault. It's no longer something's wrong with you and you're messed up. That what you come to realize is like, oh, stuff happened to me that made me feel this way or made me think this way. But just like with that in mind, I'm thinking, even for us as we're talking now, like thinking about the current political climate, me as a gay man, you as a trans man, like it makes sense that neither of us might feel like really great about how things are in the world right now. And like to downplay, I think, yes, of course, it's important to acknowledge like the privileges you and I both have. And I do think it's important to like not downplay the trauma also, you know what I mean? I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. I mean, even in thinking of like this own story that I and we are sharing today, like my own part in terms of that, like, oh, this is terrible. I can't even listen to it. I can't share it with anybody. Like the deeper work is going to the like, where did you learn that you can't make mistakes?
Right.
And doing that work, because that's the story that like unchecked is going to keep running, and I'm going to keep having situations like this. But the more that I'm able to kind of zoom out and go, wait a minute, you're not going to get canceled, and also you can correct this if you feel that there's a correction to be made. It's not just like you say something and then that's it's permanent. I mean, we are living in sort of cancel culture right now, but again, for me to zoom out and go, it doesn't have to be that way. There are maybe some people who are going to listen to the first episode and just be like, that guy sucks, but they might have felt that way anyway, and that's okay. They're not. I'm not going to work with them, and that they don't have to like me. That's okay. But also to
Absolutely.
be able to say, yeah, but you're still good at your job. There are still other people that you can help, even if you alienated a few people with what you said. Yeah. So anyway, just that deeper layer of like, where did you learn that it's not okay for you to make mistakes and that no one will like you if you do? Um,
Mhm. Yes, and yeah, and listening to you say that, I mean, I just wanna encourage listeners to, like, take that in, like, listen to Niall's process where he's like, "Okay, so this is my automatic thought, this is my reaction," and then digging deeper, like, "Where did I learn that?" That is if you're journaling, that's a
mhm.
great thing to journal about. If
Yeah.
you're in therapy, that's a great thing to talk about. Like, this is the work. This is the deeper work.
Yeah.
That's a great illustration of that.
And that's the anger work, right? The like, where did I learn this? It's identifying that and then doing the anger work around that, the like, fuck you, second grade teacher, for shaming me in front of the class, or whatever it is, like the
Yeah.
work around those things, the ways that you learn. You can't ever make a mistake, and you need to hide if you do. Just sort of identifying those areas and getting angry, because that's what actually gets us to that regulated state, that like out of wanting to hide, out of freeze mode, just being able to go, yeah, I made a mistake and it's okay.
Love it. Absolutely. Love it. Okay. So I want to get into, so we're talking about like fear cycles. Anything else you want to say about this before we switch to that?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, we kind of processed the shit out of that. Happy to. That's and it's good for people to see behind the curtain and see um like I'm sure people listening to this will relate to exactly what we're both talking
Yeah.
about. But yeah, let's get into fear cycles. Let's go there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think like all of this is the fear cycle, right? Like the fear of,
Yeah.
what if I made a mistake? What if I can't come back from this? What if people hate me? What if, like, again, I get canceled? Like that's sort of the extreme of it.
I'm
But
like, maybe if my podcasts were more popular, you might get canceled. There are a good number of people who listen to this, but you know what I mean. I
yeah,
don't
no,
think it's enough to get a person canceled.
neither of us have big enough of an audience to get
Yeah,
at. But
someday,
that's the goal.
someday.
The
But
goal.
anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just like noticing how that's showing up, because like I've already said, it's very common for people to say, I don't feel a lot of fear, but it's for me, it's not like sort of scanning my brain and going, what am I afraid of? But it's like, um when I notice myself wanting to avoid something, or when I notice myself wanting to hide from something or someone, it's that, like, that's the fear. It's like, starting to be able to look at, oh, there's a fear story running here. What is it? Because again, like, my default was just, I'm just not going to listen to it, and who cares, whatever. But then I was like, no, that I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm doing a disservice to Sean. And I listened to it, and I was like, there's all kinds of good stuff in there. Maybe there's this one thing that I wish I had answered better, but there's all kind, like, what a shame it would be to not let anybody listen to it, because we covered a lot of good stuff. So anyway, it's like just identifying that the fear is sort of running the show, and then looking at, am I actually in danger? And yeah, so that was a big part of it, is like the before I contacted you, was just like, okay, can I handle it if people don't like what I said? And the answer is, yeah, I can handle it. Can I handle it if I get angry emails from people saying, hey, you are ignorant and privileged and blah, like, can I handle that? And the answer was like, I won't like that really at all, but yes, I can handle that, and I can take it, and I can respond appropriately. If someone were to do that, spoiler alert, nobody has.
Good to know.
Yeah, right. But it's like, really sort of like thinking through to the end of the thing. I think often we stop at like, this is terrible. I'm, I'm just bad. But like, when we really think about, okay, well, what are the possible consequences here? And can you handle those? The answer is usually yes. And if it's no, then it's like, okay, well, what do I need to be able to handle this situation? And, it might be if I had gotten an angry email, like calling a friend who I know loves me and gets me for support, and like having somebody who could say, like, that sucks because I know that you're a good human who cares a lot about others who, and it sucks to feel misunderstood. And, just like call on a buddy who could maybe do that for me. But also developing the skills to do that for myself, like for me to be able to just go, okay, yeah, this hurts, this sucks, you feel really misunderstood right now, doesn't feel good, but also you're okay. Not everybody's going to like you, to be able to come back to, and you're still okay, you're not actually in danger. If people don't like what you said, um you're not actually going to get canceled for that.
Y
I
I
think-
love it.
yeah, yeah,
I love it, I love it. Yeah, I think that's so important, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Something that this is making me think of is like so this is something that I use as a therapist often when especially doing chronic pain work, is like, I wanna go back to what you were saying about, am are people gonna tell me I'm ignorant and privileged? No one wants to hear that, right? Especially the ignorant part. No one wants to hear that. But something that I use as a therapist often with my clients is like, let's go there. What if that's true?
right,
Because certainly for me, that as much as I don't want that to be true, you could easily say those two things about me. Like, I am ignorant and privileged. Like, I grew up with privilege, I continue to have privilege. I grew up in Catholic school in the United States of America. They teach us nothing. I mean, it's the same in public schools though too. We learn nothing. We don't learn proper history. We learn literal white supremacist brainwashing. Like, our uh, Americans are very ignorant, and I am one of them. And so this idea, like, oh God, like if I had a client, and I do this with myself too in my own like journaling and my own process, if I had a client really struggling with like, no, 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 someone's going to think I'm ignorant and privileged. Oh God, I can't take it. It's like, okay,
yeah,
what if it's true? you know?
yeah. Right. Well, and also like, is it true? And for you,
Right.
it's a yes and is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that's probably true for everybody, right? Like, we don't know what we don't know, and we all tend to kind of hone in on the topics that are of most interest to us. Either because they affect us personally or they affect people we care about personally. Um, but yeah, we can't know everything about everybody's issues. So we try to be sensitive, and we try to get educated when we see our own blind spots, and we try to create space for taking in new information and new ideas and things like that. But yeah, we can't know everything. We can't be on top of everything.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's such a good point. I mean, thank you for saying that, because that is so true. Like, if you're like, "Am I ignorant and privileged?" Oh God, the answer is yes, and now I just have to cope with the emotions I feel around that.
Yeah,
That is true, and it's also more complex than that. Obviously, truth is complicated. There are many different levels of truth, because there's another world in which one could say like, um I'm not ignorant. Like it
right,
can, both can actually be true at the
right.
same time. And that is just how life is.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, as some like, if I were on the outside of this, if I hear somebody make a statement that I perceive as ignorant or misinformed or whatever else, what makes all of the difference in the world to me is when they can own it and repair and acknowledge when they've made a mistake. So it's very different to just be like, I said what I said, and I'm not taking it back, versus like, oh, I said what I said, and I didn't have all the information, or I didn't say everything that I wish that I had, or it's just different when you're able to still stay open, to be able to take in feedback, to take responsibility when you've caused harm, to make repairs when you've caused harm. That's a very different kind of being ignorant in my mind than someone who maybe gets more willful about it and is just like, I don't care about these people that I don't know or understand. So
Agreed.
yeah.
No, I love that you're bringing that up, because I am thinking repair. Repair, I think, is the new frontier in
Yeah.
psychotherapy stuff. Just like maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, I meet with Christina Sarno Horner every other week for supervision,
Oh,
and
nice.
she said to me, she was talking about parenting because I was talking about
Yeah.
a client
That's what I was
who.
thinking about parenting.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, yes. Okay, so let's get into it. So she was talking about parenting, and she was like, Christina said the old parenting guidance from professionals, books, et cetera, kind of like the popular thing over the last 10 years or so has been attunement, 100% attunement. You need to be 100% attuned to your child 100% of the time, which puts a ton of pressure on
Well,
a
yeah,
on
it's
a
realistic.
parent. Right. Yeah.
What are you
Right.
attuning your kid if you're like constantly attuning to their needs all the time, like they
Right.
they don't learn how to like get their own needs met in other ways. Anyway, go on.
Right. Well, no, right. So which she said the new guidance that she loves because it takes the pressure off of her and all other parents, and also is just better and makes more sense, is that the new guidance is like a relationship with the child should be 1/3 attuned, 1/3 misattuned, and 1/3 repair.
Oh,
And when I heard that, I was just like, "Oh, damn!" And I don't know, like maybe it doesn't break down into such like clear, like if
yeah.
you spend this many hours repairing, then you have to spend that many. I don't think it has to be that strict like that.
Don't get fucked up enough this week. Go fuck up and repair.
Right, exactly. Or like apologize for something, even if you don't know what it is, because you haven't done your repair hours. But but you know what I mean. I think with parenting, no, I'm not a parent, but I also think with relationships in general, that's just a really nice way to look at it. That repair is such an important part of the process, and something that it is definitely a big part of attachment work, which is a kind of psychotherapy that I practiced more in the past, but still practice, is the idea of rupture and repair. Repair is very important, so I just want to throw that
Yeah.
out there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, rupture and repair, that is the only way to create a secure attachment is like having a
Right.
rupture, repairing it teaches you that you can trust that person, that like you guys are learning together. Like we want to fix this. We want to take care of each other. We're going to do this. Yeah. So the statistic I have heard for a few years now is that you can fuck up with your kid something like 70% of the time. So I think that is the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, as long as you're making the repair. And that's how you like, and what that means is that your kid can still grow up to have a secure attachment if you're repairing, as opposed to creating an anxious or avoidant or disorganized attachment style within that kid, which comes from like misattuning and not repairing, or inconsistently repairing, like just causing a lot of fear. Like when kids have that sense of like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble or not. I don't know if mom and dad are going to apologize to me and repair with me if I do something wrong. It just creates a lot of anxiety, and so that can manifest as insecure attachment styles. Yeah, so repair,
Yeah.
it's huge. And I mean, even just thinking in your own relationships and within your own self, honestly. And I think this process that I'm going through with you today is kind of like that, of like, like,
Yes, we're still on theme. Agreed. Go ahead.
yeah, like the repair with myself. They're like, I feel like I did a disservice in what I said in this podcast, and I'd like to correct it and fix it. And so that's like me saying to myself, like, it's okay when you screw up. You can make amends still. And that's okay, which is honestly pretty new for me and different for me. I'm much more used to like just don't ever look at it again. Like that's what I did in college. I'd write a paper. I wouldn't even like edit it. I just like, I don't know, like carry this weird shame about everything. I think a lot of us with TMS do, just be like, it must be
Totally.
terrible. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to turn it in. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, just that same, like, I can't even look at what I did. It's so bad. I can't even look at it. And, starting to teach myself, like, yes, you can. And it's probably not as bad as you think. And if it is, you can do something about it, and it's okay. Yeah. So it's like repairing with me. And yeah, I don't think I'm repairing with you exactly. We didn't have a rupture. We're just being TMS buddies who have the problems in our brain.
1,000%, 1,000%. Yes. Um, right, and I'm thinking like I love bringing this together with the idea of repair. Um, attuned, misattuned, and repair, because like what I'm hearing is like you felt that you were misattuned with like the audience, or with the audience you wanted to reach or wanted to speak to, and so you're making a repair, and that is beautiful. And I think it's new for a lot of people. Certainly it's new for me. I mean, in my family of origin, repair was, it wasn't like my parents would never have apologized for anything. They weren't like hard-headed like that. But repair was just not the vibe. Like,
Yeah.
that we wouldn't go back, and like that was not the vibe. It was like if something had gone wrong, it was more like, let's just pretend it didn't and keep it pushing, and like maybe subtly, send little like the apology might happen much more subtly, but we wouldn't address it head on. Um, and I notice myself acting like that in my adult life now, which is not
Yeah.
healthy. It's hard to like, and it's the same with clients. I think about like rupture and repair work. Like on my end as a therapist, that's something that I really like to do, but it is hard to do because, I mean, I imagine it's similar. It's like when you were reaching out to me about like, can we do like, can I fix the thing that I feel I said wrong?
Yeah.
Because you don't know, like for me, it's like, was that really a rupture? I don't know. If I bring it up, does that make it a big deal when it wasn't a big deal, or did need to be a big deal? Like, is this more about me than is about them? Like, repair is hard, and so I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad you're doing it. And I encourage people listening to like think about that for you. But what do you think?
No, I think that's important because you're right. I think a previous version of me would have been like, "You cannot bother Sean with this. He's busy. He doesn't want to do this." And like the sort of updated version was like, "You can ask. Sean might say no. That's not worth my time. I don't think anyone cares or is going to listen. You're going to just have to deal with it." And that would have been fine. I wouldn't have been upset with you. I would have just been like, "Okay, that's okay. This thing is out there, and I wish I had said something differently, but I didn't, and it's okay. There's still value in what I put out there." Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Also, I'm a TMS person, so I don't really say no that often.
and that's the funniest part of like to me about you thinking that I was going to be angry. I was like, but it's like TMS guy angry. It would have been like, Sean, I don't appreciate the way that you did.
Right.
Like I don't know, it wouldn't have been that, but it would be like, I can't believe this, or like whatever you're imagining in your head.
Right. Fear cycles. That's what we all need to, have a better understanding of that. Well, okay. I'm glad we're doing this. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it. Thanks for having me back. It was fun to just talk with you about the behind the scenes stuff that we do.
Totally. No, absolutely. This is very fun. And let me say, thinking about what I was like, what was the thing I was going to say? Now I'm remembering. Um, when you were saying like, what if I get canceled? I actually have, for people listening, you can, if if this is exciting to you, you can get excited about this. I am planning an episode coming up called "Is Chronic Pain a Mental Illness?"
Mm.
And as I've been like bulleting out like what I want to say for that one, I'm like, oh God, I don't know about this. Like I'm experiencing a very similar to
I
what Nyle is saying. Like, am I gonna get canceled? And I'm like, fucking, I go ahead, come at me.
Right? It's like the people that wanna cancel you for that probably weren't open to your message anyway.
Right.
I don't know what you're gonna say about it, but I know that you'll be skillful, like, I don't think you're gonna come down on people and be like, "You're all mentally ill," Like, it's not gonna be that, I'm sure of it.
I did that. And yes, Nile is correct. If you're listening, you can listen to that episode knowing that the answer is not going to be me cruelly diagnosing everyone listening and being like, so that's it, and that's your problem. Um,
Yeah.
but I actually think the answer to that is like a little more complex than yes or no.
I
So we will, boop,
I
boop,
agree.
boop.
I mean, I think
If you're interested, we'll get into it. Go ahead.
I am interested. I think it starts with what is mental illness, like, you know, like what do we call mental illness and what is not mental illness, and then probably going from there. But I don't want to
Thank you.
pregame your episode.
No, I will say you're on. You already are hitting on some of the points that will be brought up. So so there we go. But okay. This has been really awesome. Thank you so much for coming back on. Thank you for doing this. And I didn't even think of it in this way until we started talking about it. But the idea of this being a act of misattunement and then repair is huge, and I'm glad that that came out of this conversation. So this is great modeling for people listening to this, and great like inspiration for people listening to this. So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening, this has been the Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain podcast, and I will see you soon.